me, Sensei Hamza. Today, we'll be continuing the Pac Man game just like we started last video. Last video, we were able to create the Pac Man sprite and the maze sprite, and we were able to insert basic code for those two. Today, we'll be finishing off the maze sprite and creating little dots that Pac Man will eat to gain points. Let's get right into it. Hope you guys enjoy. Alright everybody, so today we'll be finishing off the maze and making the dots so that Pac Man can gain some points. The first thing we need to do is, if you run what we have right now, Pac Man just runs past the maze, and the maze has really no point. There's no point in being there because it's not really stopping Pac Man from running in places. The first thing we need to do is we need to enter the maze sprite and we need to go to costumes. Originally, first you want to select all the rectangles. Originally, we had the thickness of the walls at 5. So with Scratch, sometimes the color of the walls won't actually be a solid red. It'll be like a light shade of red over here and then solid red in the middle. So to minimize the room for error when we do the code, this will make a lot more sense when we do the code, but for now, let's just make the outline thickness 13. This will help us a lot when it comes to minimizing the error in the code that we're about to do. So after we do that, the next thing we want to do is go to the Pac Man sprite, and this is where we're going to enter the code to keep Pac Man within the maze. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the when green flag is click button, and we're going to grab a forever loop. After that, we need an if statement, and then we could go to sensing, grab touching color. So to stay within the maze, we want to know if the Pac Man is touching this red color, because that would mean he's touching one of the walls of the maze. So to get that color, all we have to do is hit on this color right here within the touching color block, and then hit this little symbol right here. And then we could hover over the red and just pick that red. Simple as that. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to grab the move steps. And if we're gonna have Pac Man move 3 steps forward, then when he hits the red, we want him to move 3 steps backwards. That would cancel the movement out, and he would actually move 0 steps, which means he would stay put, which is exactly what we want him to do. When he hits the wall, we want him to not move until the person who is playing the game changes the direction by using the up, down, left, right arrow keys. So to make him stay put, we're gonna make him move back 3 steps by using the -3 number. So that's the code for keeping him in the maze. Let's test that out and see what happens. Alright, let's start the game. He goes, and he hit one of the walls of the maze. And you can see from the walls of the maze that all of these 3 blocks of code are running. And he's moving forward 3 steps, but since he's touching the color, he's also moving back 3 steps at the same time, which means he's actually not moving at all and he's just staying put. But if I hit the down arrow key, that means he's going to change direction, which means he'll no longer be hitting the red, and he'll actually go down now. But then he reaches another block, so I'll hit up, I'll go to the right, and then I'll just travel around for now just to show you guys. So yeah, so we might have to fix this little area here because there's not enough room for Pac Man to travel without him hitting the red. So to fix that, if that ever happens to you guys, you just want to go to costumes, and you could lift this up a little bit and make this a little bit smaller. So now he should be able to travel. We could also lift this up to match that. Now he should be able to travel everywhere. So let's test it out, okay? So he can travel in pretty much, hopefully, all parts of the maze. So there we go. Alright, so the maze code works. I do see one small thing I just want to take care of real quick. I don't want it to be sticking out like that, so just grab that and lower it a little bit. It shouldn't be sticking. There we go. Alright, so that's the code for the maze as of right now. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is we need to change the color of the background. So as you guys noticed, I talked about in the first video, this little detector block right here, this little blue thing right here. Normally that's not in Pac Man, but in order for us to be able to code it, we're gonna need this detector block later on. So what we want is we're going to change the background to a similar color to the detector block so that the player won't be able to notice it and it won't bother them. So to change the background, all you have to do is hit paint backdrop, and then you could insert a rectangle. You could insert a rectangle here. We'll change the outline to it so that it's not red. we'll make the outline a similar color to that blue. So actually, we could grab that color from, okay, actually, yeah, let's just make it blue. So we can make it that blue, and then we also want to fill this rectangle the same color blue as well. So there you go. Let's see. Select this. Select the fill. There we go. All right. So now the background of the Pac Man game is blue, so you really can't see the detective block now. It's almost invisible, which is exactly what we wanted. So that works, which is good. So I encourage you guys to do that. Whatever color you use for the detective block, just make the background of it. It won't affect the game at all, and it'll make the game look a lot nicer for the player. Alright, so now that we finished with the maze, the next thing that I told you guys we would do is create the dots for Pac-Man to eat. So for those of you who haven't played Pac-Man or haven't played it recently and forgot the rules, the Pac-Man is supposed to eat little dots, and that's how he gets points. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create the point sprite, or the dot sprite, that will represent the little blocks that Pac-Man will eat up throughout the game. So to do that, we're going to go to choose a sprite and hit paint, and we're going to you guys can make the color whatever you want. I'll go with this color, why not? Actually, I'll go a little more orange. I'll go that color, why not? And the outline doesn't really need an outline. So this could really be whatever shape you want, to be honest with you. I'll make it a circle, but for you guys, it could be whatever you want. It shouldn't be this big. Once you guys make it, it'll be a little big, but you can make it a lot smaller by changing the size. That's a little small. That's not what I meant to do. That's a little small. So I'll make mine 40. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, 40. I'll make it 45. 45 looks good. All right. So the next thing after that is we want to name it. We could name these points. Okay. So after we make the sprite, we want to go into the stage code. So we're going to be inputting some code into the stage. We haven't really done this in any of our games recently, but the stage is really good to enter code in because the stage is always there. Hold on, what happened to the blue background? Okay, I see. Okay. So yeah, as I was saying, we're going to be entering some code into the stage. I haven't really done that with you guys so far in other games, but the stage is really good because no matter what, the stage is always there. So any code that you put into the stage will always be available. So that's what we'll do for this. So in the stage, what we want to do is grab the when the green flag is clicked, and we're going to need to create a variable. So to test if our point code is going to work, we're going to need to create a variable called remaining. Yep. So this variable will be able to tell us the amount of dots that are in the game currently, and this will help us create our code. So once you create the variable, we're going to grab the set remaining to 0 button, and then we're going to broadcast a message. The message we're going to broadcast is show. Alright. So once we do that, we're going to enter the point sprite, and we're going to enter some code into that. So when the message show is received, which is the block for that is right here, we're going to show the sprite. So when we get the message to show the dot, we're going to show the dot. It's that simple. And the next thing we need is to change the remaining by 1. So whenever we show a dot, we want to increase this variable because this will tell us the amount of dots that are within the game. That number will be really helpful to us and will help us code the rest of it. After that, we need a forever loop and an if statement within the forever loop. Alright, so the point of the point sprite is so that when the Pac-Man eats them, their points go up, and that's how he gets points within the game. So to do that, we're gonna need the sensing button. If the point sprite is touching Pac-Man, which means Pac-Man ate the point sprite, then we're going to change the remaining variable by -1, which means it's going to go down. So basically, if Pac-Man ate a point, then let's not call it a point. I think it's easier to call it a dot. If Pac-Man ate a dot, then that means the amount of dots remaining should go down, which is exactly what we have here. And when we receive the show message, we're going to show a dot, and then we're going to change the amount of dots by 1, which means that whenever we have a new dot entered, the amount of dots will go up by 1, which is exactly what we want. So if Pac-Man eats a dot, then we want to change remaining by -1, which means the amount of dots goes down by 1, and then we want to hide the dot. We don't want it to be there anymore if we ate it already. After that, we're going to broadcast a message, and that message is going to be called eaten, to resemble simply that the dot has been eaten. And then after that, we're going to stop this script. So we're going to go to get the stop all button, and we're going to press all, and we're going to use this script just to make sure that the game doesn't crash, because if this forever loop keeps running, then the game could go slower, even crash for you guys. So now let's test out this code on just this one dot. So right now there's only one dot, which is right, because the remaining number is 1, which is exactly what we want. So let's travel and see if we can eat the dot. Let's go. Alright. Okay, so I'm not actually realizing there's a problem with my game. There's no way to get into the center here without... Yeah, there's just no way to get into the center, because this blocks it off and this blocks it off, and this is the only entrance. So as you guys code the game, you guys will see a couple problems like this that I've seen so far. So you're going to have problems with getting into the maze unless you thought about it a lot when you originally made it. So to fix this, we could go into the maze, hit costumes, and then we could erase just one little hole here so that we're able to get into the center. So we could do it like that. Or if you don't want to erase a hole, then we could just get one of these two blockades so that we're able to access this entrance. So I actually think that's what I will do. I'll get rid of this, and now I'm able to travel through here and get in like that. So there we go. And so let's go back to testing out that code that we originally made. I'll have Pac-Man travel. Let's see if we can get in and eat the dot. And then the main thing is we want to see that the remaining variable go down by 1 after I eat the dot. So let's see. Alright. So what happened there is I traveled to the dot, I ate the dot, and then the remaining value went down by 1, which is exactly what we want. That's really good. So that means our code for the dot works. Alright. So the next thing that we have to do is really, really long. It's going to take a long time for you guys. So basically, now that we have the code for one dot, we have to create a bunch of different dots so that they all fill up the maze. So I know this seems annoying, but unfortunately we're gonna have to do it. I thought about different ways to get out of it, but there's really not much you can do. So you're gonna have to hit the duplicate. Let's show the dot again. What you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to duplicate the dot a bunch of different times until you're able to fill up the entire maze. So you're gonna wanna set the dots apart and fill them out just like I'm doing. You wanna be able to fill out the entire maze. I know this is long, but we have to do it. So you're gonna have to duplicate the dot however many times it takes. It's probably gonna be different for everybody because everybody should have different mazes. But you're gonna have to duplicate the dots and match them around. Alright everybody, so now that we've taken the time to duplicate the dots and put them out so that they all match up into the maze, we can now test our code to see if it works. So our code today was to make sure that when we get the dots, so let's actually go into the dot code. So when we receive the broadcast show, we want to show the dot, and then we want to change the remaining value by 1 because that means that a dot has been added into the game. And then if the dot is touching the Pac-Man, then we want to change the remaining by -1 because that means the dot has been eaten, and we want to hide that dot, which means we don't want to see it anymore since it's been eaten, and then we want to broadcast the message eaten, which is what we wanted to do this entire day. So now that we have spread out the dots, we can now test this code. So the way we could test it is we could have Pac-Man go around and eat all of the dots. When he finishes eating all the dots, this remaining variable should say 0. The number there should be 0. So that's what we'll do. Let's test it out. So I'm gonna go around and eat all the dots, and I'll come back when I'm done, and then I'll show you guys whether or not the remaining variable is 0. If it is 0, that means we accomplished today's goals, and if not, we have to go back and review. Hey everyone, so after going around and directing Pac-Man to eat up all the dots, the remaining variable actually does turn out to be 0, which is exactly what we wanted to do. So after Pac-Man eats the dot, then we want to change remaining by -1. So after he eats all the dots, essentially remaining should be 0, which is exactly what we have. So that means all the code that we did today for part 2 of the Pac-Man series has worked. So that's all for today for part 2 of how to make the Pac Man game. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you stay safe, and I'll see you guys later on this week for part 3.